Welcome to Energy Frontier, the Wyoming Landscape Podcast. Hosted by Dr. Soheil Krutka, Executive Director of the School of Energy Resources at the University of Wyoming. The show highlights SER's role supporting our mission to promote energy-driven economic development for the state of Wyoming.
Welcome back, listeners. Today, we're going to focus once again on the energy research program here at the School of Energy Resources. If you've listened to earlier episodes, you've heard that our research program is really organized into centers of excellence, and those are both led by staff here at the School of Energy Resources, as well as incredible collaborators across the University of Wyoming. So today, we're going to be hearing about a new center. It's our newest center of excellence. It's called the Center for Subsurface Energy Digital Innovation. And we shorten that to SETI, and it's led by Dr. Soheil Saraji in the Department of Energy and Petroleum Engineering. So welcome, Soheil.
Hello, thank you for having me here.
So can you start by sharing your background and how you came to work here at the University of Wyoming?
Sure, yes. My journey at the University of Wyoming began in 2008 when I came here as a PhD student. And I was attracted here by the strong program in energy and petroleum engineering. And after obtaining my PhD degree, I worked as a postdoctoral scientist for a few years. And in 2016, I joined the faculty as a tenure-track assistant professor. And since there, I had the privilege to contribute to both teaching and research in the Department of Energy and Petroleum Engineering at UW.
And you've been a great collaborator to us at the School of Energy Resources, to the department, and to the university broadly. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much. SER has been very instrumental in my progress at the university too.
Thank you. So why originally were you interested in focusing on petroleum engineering?
You know, my background, I grew up in Middle East when we were surrounded by the vast petroleum resources in the region. And I have naturally were drawn to the petroleum engineering as it came close to my roots, to my everyday life. Beyond that, also, I was interested in the broad impact of the energy in our everyday life. You know, everybody interacts with energy, whether they are powering their homes, industry, and a lot of the transportation, modern technology, everything is powered by energy. So being able to contribute to this field sounds interesting and exciting to me. As still up to date, I'm excited about this particular field.
I totally agree. Everything in life is impacted by energy, even this podcast, everything. So totally share your enthusiasm. So you've been a faculty member for several years now, and you decided to work with us to stand up this center. So what was the first inspiration that inspired you to really stand up this Center of Excellence of Subsurface Energy Digital Innovation, or SETI?
So, you know, my background is in subsurface energy extraction and storage. I have a very strong experimental background. I have worked in the lab since I was a student and as a faculty for many years. But digital innovation is something that always grabbed my attention. And it was something that I would, late at night when I'm at home, I would learn and try to take courses or learn about these topics. So I guess funny enough, the interception of these two came to mind, I think, during COVID time when I had a lot of free time in my hand. And at some point I thought, how can these two combine and come together? So I started with a few ideas, talked to some people, wrote some white papers here and then the feedback was very strong. So that I felt like there is something to pursue from that perspective. And then, I shared these ideas with the industry experts, with my colleagues at the School of Energy Resources and the department, and I got very positive feedback. So that was the start of the idea.
So I love that you kind of taught yourself a whole new area during COVID. So the rest of us were like watching Netflix reruns, and you were learning to kind of reinvent yourself from being experimentalist in the lab to now really doing leading edge research on digital innovation for Wyoming's largest energy sector, or our largest industry, which is the energy sector. So that's really cool. So obviously you need resources to start a center like this.
Correct.
One of the first tranches of resources that helped you to establish this center was a generous gift from Richard and Marilyn Lynch, and they created a non-endowed chair and it's called for Subsurface Energy and Digital Innovation. So can you talk about how the creation of that gift really helped you kind of get the center started and launch it?
Yes, so this generous gift was instrumental in supporting the development of the center by allowing us to go and recruit top talent in the field and drive impactful research in this area. Also, I want to emphasize that other than the monetary value of the gift, I think Richard Lynch, as many of us know him, he's a seasoned industry expert with remarkable track record in innovation and technology. Bringing invaluable insights and credibility to the center by this donation and supporting us, I think this person, like at this level, at this status, that can believe in us and support this initiative, to me, that's very important. It's bring us a lot of support, not only monetarily, but also from the point of view that this is also a very important topic to pursue. So I'm very grateful to Richard and Marilyn Lynch for their support of the center at their earliest stage. And I'm sure a lot of good news will come in following years we will be thankful to them for all the things that the center can do.
I'm sure good news is coming. I think good news is already here. And that's a good point that Richard Lynch has had this long background in industry, has risen to leadership in Hess. And so him and Marilyn being willing to invest in this center is a vote of confidence. And certainly here at the School of Energy Resources, by statute, we're required to work with industry. So when we see industry supporting work here at the university that's really innovative, we pay attention. And I think I should define what a center is, right? It's not a place. It can be a collection of ideas and people who work together, and they can work together in online, in person, in labs. It can be very fluid. Center is really a group of folks working around a topic. And in this case, you're the director, you've kind of laid out this topic, but it's also your responsibility to bring folks into the center. And that can be students or collaborators. So let's start with what are your main goals and who's involved so far?
Great. So good question. First, let's talk about the main goals of the center, or where the areas of expertise we are trying to develop here. So originally, we identified 5 areas of interest that the center is developing currently. These areas are blockchain for sustainable energy, big data analytics for energy optimization. Third area is scientific machine learning applications. Area number 4 is digital twins and application of augmented reality and virtual reality for decision-making in the energy sector. And the 5th area is discovery of novel fluids for energy applications. So these are the areas that we want to develop, and we are dedicating ourselves to advancing research and innovation in the intersection of subsurface energy and digital technology. Now, in terms of collaborators, the center is relatively new. We established the center with the help of 2 of my colleagues in the department, Dr. Minu Rabi, who is an associate professor in the department, and Dr. Tawfiq Al-Shahabi, who is assistant professor in the department. We are also actively working to expand our network of collaborators across the campus. I think the natural fit for us would be experts at the School of Energy Resources, School of Computing, Department of Geology and Geophysics, and Department of Computer Science. We are having some conversation going on, and hopefully we are establishing our relationship and then growing the center through our collaboration network.
That's great. So that's a lot of different areas to research. How would you know in a specific area or overall if what you're working on is successful? How do you decide that? What are your metrics?
Great. So I think the success, at least from the point of view of the center, I would say there are 3 areas that we are looking into. One is a research output. For any research center, we need to be very careful of research output. Yeah. How do you measure that? By high quality publication in leading journals, by developing innovative technology and methodologies that have practical applications, by successful acquisition of competitive research grants, by facilitating joint projects with experts from different fields and bring them together. That's one area that we can look into how whether a center is successful or not. The other area for this center, especially, we set the goal for the center to be very focused on applied research. Therefore, industry impact is very important for us. Establishing partnership with industry leaders is something that we are pursuing very seriously. We want to be able to demonstrate improvement in operational efficiency and sustainability through the projects we do through the center. And we would like to see adoption of our developed outputs or technologies from the industry, especially for the industry in Wyoming energy sector. And hopefully with seeing that, we can gauge ourselves whether we were successful in that goal or not. And the third goal, of course, we are educational institutions. So education is our core of everything we do. being able to train and mentor students that become eventually leaders in this field is important for the center. So we are putting a lot of emphasis on that and developing interdisciplinary programs, recruiting students from different backgrounds in the center. So one thing that we want to do to make sure that we are not only limiting ourselves to petroleum engineers, but we are bringing talent from a lot of different disciplines, because the center tries to look into subsurface as a general perspective that can include a lot of different sources of energy, including petroleum.
Great answer. So let's talk about maybe one or two areas more specifically. So you recently published a book called Sustainable Oil and Gas Blockchain, and you explored how blockchain can help create a more sustainable oil and gas industry. I think there's a lot of application for the way you're thinking about this in Wyoming. So for example, some of the early support for some of this work or interest in this work has come from a company called Pure West, a large natural gas producer here in the state of Wyoming. And they're interested in blockchain or supporting us here at UW around this effort because they have a very low methane intensity natural gas, and which means when they produce their natural gas, which happens on the west side of the state, very little of it leaks. And it turns out that that might be a marketable product. And blockchain might be one way to identify that and sell it on a different market. So let's talk about exactly what that means. So that's just a real world example, but there's a lot of research that needs to be done, and it's great we can do it here at the University of Wyoming. So let's just start with the basics. For those who aren't familiar, can you explain what is blockchain in simple terms?
All right, so I teach a course on blockchain, so I feel comfortable talking about it. Blockchain is basically a digital ledger, a way to secure, record, and share information across multiple parties without a central authority, and that's the key point. So there is nobody that's single-handedly monitoring the entire network. Think of it as a chain of blocks, and each block represents information. It contains information, such as data entry, transactions, and so forth. These blocks are permanently recorded and chained together using cryptographic tools so that they are secured and they are immutable, meaning that the history of blockchain will stay forever as long as all the participants agree that that is the true record of the data that we are collecting. So I think the uniqueness of blockchain comes in with its transparency and security from one hand, and also from the other hand being tamper-proof and bringing trust and accuracy among a diverse group of people that don't necessarily trust each other, and that's what blockchain is really good at. In the context of oil and gas, I think the area that blockchain can benefit from, which is the area that I wrote the book on, would be on sustainability, so specifically on emission data, as you mentioned earlier, supply chain interactions, management, and regulatory compliances. We are looking into environmental sensing potentially with blockchain, and these are the areas that are very new. They are just being developed, mostly at the research level, and hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years, they become more practical and more applicable in the field.
And are there any misconceptions about blockchain that you'd like to talk about?
Sure, yes. As I taught the blockchain energy course for 3 years now at the University of Wyoming, I initially get a feeling what the students think about blockchain, and I have at least 2 or 3 big misconceptions that I need to fix in my courses before I move forward. The first one being, and it's no fault of anybody, the big association between blockchain and cryptocurrency.
Right, crypto.
Yes. So blockchain is the technology that allowed cryptocurrency to become popular, survive, and become prominent nowadays with Bitcoin trading above $100,000 per coin. So yes, these are very related concepts. However, blockchain is the underlying technology that made Bitcoin possible. But we can separate these two from each other and focus on blockchain. Blockchain by itself has certain properties that can be used for a lot of different applications, not only finances. For example, supply chain management, energy sector, healthcare sector, they can benefit from this technology. The other misconception, the second misconception that during my talks and my classes I get is the misconception that a lot of people think blockchain is inherently energy intensive.
Yeah.
So that is true. Certain blockchains like Bitcoin use energy intensive methods for securing the network, namely, if I want to get a little technical, called proof of work consensus mechanism that they are using. However, this is not the only available blockchain technology. There are others, such as proof of stake and other ones, that are less energy intensive. As a matter of fact, 99.9% less energy intensive, by providing relatively comparable security to the network. So that's the other one that we can solve that problem very easily. As a matter of fact, there are prominent blockchains nowadays that are running on these new technology for many years, and they have been secure for so far. Maybe the last one, less of a misconception, it would be for the people that are sitting outside of the blockchain and cryptocurrency and think of it as more of a buzzword or a hype with little practical applications. In reality, though, we pick the right use cases for blockchain. Blockchain it's not a pixie dust. It's not going to solve all of our problem. It's really good at certain things. If we identify those areas and focus on those areas, there are a lot of real world applications that blockchain can contribute to solve. Especially, again, in our field would be sustainability, in my view, would be the first application of blockchain that would take off.
Okay, so that is really helpful education. I think there's a lot of good points. So blockchains, actually, it is already in use in supply chains for sure today. And so separating it, it's not only for cryptocurrency. That was your first one. So I think that's a great point to make. The other thing, it's interesting in Wyoming, there are many, many intersections between energy and blockchain technology. It's a consumer of energy. There have been instances where blockchain has been used, or crypto mining, I guess I should say, has occurred using flare gas, and actually in some ways kind of reduces emissions, or at least reduces waste of energy. And then there's this huge intersection and really opportunity for the state in potentially helping energy producers monetize positive attributes. So whether it's having less methane, whether it's doing excellent reclamation, I think Wyoming has a lot going for it in terms of balancing environmental stewardship with energy production, and blockchain really is an option that could help the state monetize that and help the state's producers monetize that. Wouldn't you agree?
Exactly. I 100% agree with that. And, being a small state and being an energy state and being, in my opinion, a technology state, because we are very sensitive to technology, it's just a perfect place for us to test these ideas in the state first, at the small scale, and then hopefully by the success of them, we can bring them broader and make them much larger in scope.
So, narrowing down a specific potential application, blockchain-based carbon credit trading could be maybe a game changer for the carbon market. Maybe it make it a little bit more robust and rigorous. Potentially, you could trust carbon credits potentially more than you could just buying them on, because there's more verification required and it's all protected in the blockchain. So, including how companies are sharing real-time data. So, can you talk about how that works and why it's promising, assuming you think it's promising?
Yes, sure. So I actually have a really interest in this topic. This is the first topic that I started investigating on bringing blockchain to my research. And so to explain it maybe concretely, there are several steps involved with when we are applying blockchain in a carbon credit market. The first is that we want to develop a digital representation of the otherwise paper-based carbon credits, right? So the first thing we do, we develop these digital credits or digital coins that represents 1 ton of CO2 reduced or removed from the atmosphere, and then tokenize them on blockchain. Now, one advantage of this is that it can now, as a digital asset, can be traded very easily on a blockchain platform. The second part of this is, as you mentioned earlier, is the tracking and verification. Blockchain's immutable ledger ensures that every step of a carbon life cycle, from its issuances to trading to retirement, which again, another jargon on blockchain, we call them burning a token, retirement of a token, they all can be recorded transparently on blockchain. On top of that, the smart contracts, which are these digital codes on blockchain, can allow us to automate a lot of verification processes online, which saves time and money and brings compliance to standards and so forth to the token itself. Now, the next component that is important is the decentralized marketplaces on blockchain. This is what currently happening on digital currencies on blockchain, and they are very readily tradable on top of blockchain. Very secure and very fast trading happening there. allowing carbon credits to be traded in that fashion on blockchain would basically reduce intermediaries and bring accessibility to the carbon markets across the world. Also, the other benefit of that would be real-time data sharing. Blockchain allows stakeholders to share the real-time data on carbon credits. That might include details about the projects who are generating credits, their verification status, their trading history, right? These are all the things that could impact the price of a carbon credit. So the way I'm looking at it is that maybe we don't have one carbon credit that has one single price. Other carbon credit developed by different companies, different processes, each one of them have different price because the verification validation part would be different. So the ones that are better verified and validated would have a better price compared to other ones and so forth. So this brings transparency to the process.
That's a good way of explaining it. And when you're talking about like retiring a token, that is starting to drift into jargon. So I want to unpack that. I think my understanding of what it means is if a company has made some sort of commitment to have a certain number of credits, so they want offsets for their emissions or something, whatever it is, they have some kind of purchase for a specific credit that is being held on a blockchain, and then by retiring it means simply it can't be traded again. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly
because
correct.
They've used it to kind of go against something. So
you're basically using it as an offset against your carbon emission, yearly carbon emission, and at the time you can retire them, meaning that it's permanently out of circulation and you're using it towards carbon emission goals.
So the whole area of subsurface energy and digital innovation, it's really broad. And so let's shift gears a little bit from blockchain to artificial intelligence or AI and machine learning. So can you talk about how you're using those to drive innovation in subsurface energy projects?
Yes, a great question again. So I can say broadly, I can categorize everything we do under this AI and machine learning category into two big areas. One is a data-driven analytics. In this approach, we are using AI or machine learning to analyze large data sets, replace inaccessible or maybe unknown physics sometimes, and we use data-driven algorithms, right? Let me give you an example. For example, this can be used, or the project that we're working on is reservoir characterization, especially for unconventional reservoirs, which are a little bit more complicated. This might include tasks like mineral mapping. It could include identifying sweet spots for production or optimizing resource extraction, for example, right? What we're doing is that we're harnessing data and we make informed decision-making using the data and the pattern in data. Also, I want to mention that my colleagues in the center work on other areas similar to that, like optimizing, using data-driven algorithms for optimizing drilling and completion operations, or using graph-based algorithms for decision-making, for example. The second area, which is a more of an emerging area and newer, is what we call maybe scientific machine learning. There are different names for it, but I like scientific machine learning better. This approach integrates AI and ML with physical models. So in the first set, we are bypassing physical models so we can get to the answer faster, or maybe physical model doesn't exist. In the second category, we are combining the decades of experience in subsurface modeling with advanced machine learning algorithms. This is a very powerful area. It basically brings the strength of several decades of our background in physics-based modeling to efficiency and predictive power of AI and ML. Let me give you an example. For example, a project that we're working on currently is reactive transport modeling. This is a very complicated modeling, involves a lot of physics, a lot of chemistry, and fluid transport on the ground. And for us to be able to capture everything, the physics is either doesn't exist in certain areas, or even if it exists, the current models are very slow. So AI can either help us to develop or complement our models for the areas that physics are missing, or help us to accelerate the entire process. So that's the idea. The other area that could maybe fit in this category, I'll call them digital twins for subsurface systems. These digital twins are basically virtual replicas of these physical real systems, and we use them so that we can make decisions faster, versus all traditional tools may take days or weeks to give us an answer. These digital twins would be able to give us answer in real time.
Yeah, digital twins, that's really cool. It's definitely a buzzword right now, and the whole thing is it's just a digital replication of something in the real world, the physical world. And you're using ML, you mean machine learning. So I think subsurface environments are really complex, and I feel like AI or artificial intelligence, it really thrives when there's a lot of data available, but sometimes you have really limited information about the subsurface. And that's like one of the big challenges about doing subsurface energy, which makes it very exciting for those that do research on it. But how do you ensure that AI predictions are reliable?
Great question. So, as you mentioned, data is very important when you are deploying AI tools. So you need to make sure that not only you have the data, but you have the highest quality data possible. This involves, for example, high quality laboratory data, field data, and then the second stage after that would be rigorous testing. So these AI tools are typically used to develop models and make predictions. And we need to be able to validate and verify those predictions in the future to see if we were correct or not correct, and then course correct based on the results. So for example, for laboratory data, we are of course working on a lot of laboratory generation data. We have access to cutting edge laboratories here at University of Wyoming. Maybe one of the most recent one that we're working on actively developing is integrated rock mechanics and fluid dynamics laboratory that will allow us to generate a lot of data that relates to hydraulic fracturing and void recovery and so forth. And field data, to be honest, requires fostering partnership with industry, because that's where the data comes from. Right. And that's why, again, industry partnership is one of the key areas for us in the center. And being able to develop integrated workflows to connect data from the lab to data with the field, finding the gaps, using AI to fill those gaps, and quite honestly, bringing physics. So sometimes we can have less, if we have less data, bringing more of a physics into the models will help us to make sure that at least we are following the laws of physics while
That's good. Yes. We follow all the laws. So, okay. So let's talk about a specific example, a specific project that you're using AI, and you're using it in our Maori project. So the Maori project was funded by the Wyoming legislature to really use all the expertise across the University of Wyoming to research and educate students on Wyoming's largest unconventional oil and gas resource, which is the Maori Shale. So you are leading one of the projects that's focused on using AI to detect sweet spots in the Maori. And I think industry partners have told us that they've had some incredible wells in the Maori, and then others have come up dry or not what they expected, at least. So that's why if we can use artificial intelligence to try to understand which areas might result in better production, that could have a lot of value to the state. So can you talk about how you're using AI for this specific project and what kind of insights the models are generating?
Good question. Yes, this is a project that we are actively working on. I can maybe divide the project to three pieces. The first piece is, as again, we come back to the data. Data is very important for any AI algorithm. So data collection and integration is the first stage. We are leveraging advanced laboratory characterization techniques to develop large data sets. So we are developing particular workflows to develop data from using different techniques. So we are not relying on very expensive, very time-consuming techniques. So we have basically laboratory shortcuts to get to the same data. So that's one area we are improving. This, when I'm talking about data, maybe I can give you a little bit of understanding for those people that are familiar with subsurface. These are mineralogical data, geochemical data, for example, organic matter, petrophysical data, and mechanical data of the rock. And then we need to be able to combine them with the field data. In a integrated data sets, there might be places that are gap existing. This is one area that AI can help us to interpolate the gap between these data sets and find patterns. After that, the next step would be our master AI model for sweet spot prediction. This model then utilizes this curated and filtered quality data to train a master AI model that integrates subsurface expertise here. So this is a key part of it. So AIs or any models can be very efficient in doing wrong things. So what we need to bring is the expertise from us, from School of Energy Resources, to modify these models to make sure that they are doing the right thing, right? We are not optimizing for the wrong type of results. In this scenario, the best next step would be validation of field results, right? So we need to be able to validate the predictions based on what is happening in the field. There are some existing data, for example, production data, that we can rely on to see if the model correctly predicted the high producing wells, for example. However, this also requires maybe if the algorithm does a prediction, can we test it? And that requires, of course, industry partners. And in partnership with the School of Energy Resources, we are actively looking into partners in this area so we can bring the models, develop it with them, and verify and validate it so we make sure that we are doing the correct predictions.
Yeah, we're so grateful to have all those industry partners because you're right. I love what you said. Models can be very efficient at doing things wrong or something like that. Okay. So this is truly a cutting edge field. And like you said earlier, at the heart of what we do really is we're a university, we're an educational institution, and there's students getting to work on this. I mean, I think they're very fortunate because this is such an incredible opportunity being that it's so cutting edge. So talk about, hopefully there are potential students listening to this and we will send it to them. If they're considering it, talk about what kind of education and research opportunities might be available in this space. And also maybe even here at UW at some point in the future.
Great. Yes. So, one of our mission here at the center is to attract the top talents in the field and then give them ample opportunities for them to grow and become experts in the field. We are, of course, anticipating some positions to open in the next 6 to 9 months from PhD, full scholarship supported for PhDs, some position potentially for postdoctoral scientists in the center to help us with the projects that are oncoming. So if I want to discuss the opportunities that students have with the center is that first and foremost is the practical applied research that we are doing in collaboration with companies. They get to get involved in those projects and interact with the experts in the field so that they can see immediately the work that they are doing in the lab or using their modeling system and how it translates in the real world. We are also very active in our department in developing courses on digital technology in the Department of Energy and Petroleum Engineering, me and my colleagues. There are also courses that already exist or currently being developed in Computer Science Department, School of Computing. And these courses ranges from different topics from blockchain to machine learning to AI to data mining and so forth. So these are all the available education for the students. On top of that, we are working on ideas of developing workshops and seminars around these topics on campus, bringing experts from all over the nation on campus so that we can first develop a network of collaborations and second, educate our students on these topics.
And how do you personally look at mentoring students so that they're prepared for successful careers in this field? And you already talked about, I mean, right from the get-go, they have industry information and contacts coming into it, but talk about your kind of philosophy on mentoring students.
Sure. So I'm mostly hands-on with projects and students. So I would get engaged with the students on a weekly basis, and we develop the projects together until they become more independent. Towards the later years of their PhD, they would be mostly doing more of independent work together. The other part that I very encourage in a team and in the center would be collaboration among different students. Even peer groups and peer teams are very effective, actually, from students learning from each other. While some of them might be expert in one instrument, one tool, the other might be expert in some sort of digital tool, and working together, they would learn from each other. That's very effective, and I think we encourage that a lot in both my group and the center. And the other area that I'm working on when it's possible and the type of project permits is co-advising students. This would allow for faculty from different disciplines to collaborate on a topic, and the students will learn two different disciplines under one project, which is bringing them broader perspective on what can be done in that, and I think that's very effective.
So by co-advising, you mean having two faculty members?
Yes, correct. Okay. So either the faculty member from the department with a completely different field or outside the department, because, for example, again, I mentioned some departments here, like I think geology and geophysics is a very good example. I had previously co-advised a student with that department, and my colleagues in that department, and has been very successful. So I think this is something that we can do more of. Nowadays, we are living in an era that interdisciplinary research is very important. So we can't ignore it. And for that to happen, we need to bring different expertise to help the students.
That's really well said. Maybe interdisciplinary research and working across different disciplines was always important, but now it's like more formally recognized.
Correct. Or maybe we cannot afford to ignore it anymore.
We can't afford, yeah. If you're in it to win it, you need to collaborate. So, well, there's so many things we could talk about. We've covered a lot of ground and really appreciate your partnership and all this. I think you're very visionary in standing up this center. And on that, I'm just curious, where this is a relatively new center, where do you see it going over the next decade?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. I think SCR has been a very good partner. You guys at the School of Energy Resources have been already developing, we have developing projects with you, and hopefully we have your support for upcoming years as well. So we are a center at the various early stages. I don't know if the audience know, but we launched the center this summer. So it's very new.
So summer 2024.
2024.
Yeah.
So for the next decade, we want to build a solid foundation for the center. And that would be on our key areas of research that we mentioned earlier in the podcast. So again, I maybe reemphasize some of the things I said earlier. Recruiting the top talent, that's very important. We need to be able to do cutting edge research, and that requires a top talent. So that's definitely an area that we want to do in the next few years. We want to expand and strengthen our collaboration network, as I mentioned earlier, both on campus and off campus. Specifically, I think there is a really good opportunities for EPSCoR states to collaborate. We are establishing that with a few other universities currently working on some ideas together. Then being able to deepen our existing projects, scaling them into impactful solutions is the other area. Eventually, I would like to see the center to become a leading hub for innovation in this area of subsurface and digital innovation. There are other technologies that are newer we were looking into, such as, for example, quantum computing is another area. We don't have expertise currently in the center, but this is a potential area that could help us with optimization or complex simulation of subsurface systems. There is a new center here on campus, Center for Quantum Information Science and Engineering. I had a preliminary meeting with the head of that center to discuss some potential collaboration in the future. We will definitely want to make sure that we are not ignoring any digital technology in the center.
Sure. Yeah. So we've covered so much ground, and I can't wait to see where all this goes. But I will say it's your brainchild and been led by you. And so let's let our listeners know a little bit more about you. I usually ask the same question, which is, what is your favorite place to visit in Wyoming?
Yeah, that's an easy answer for me. Teton National Park for me is an amazing place to visit. It has sharp and dramatic peaks. That's very amazing. They somehow convey some sort of energy, some sort of youthful and rugged edges. That to me sounds like I correlate it to untapped potential and challenges that we have in research in subsurface. And also, it's a part of nature that I feel connected to, and that's, sometimes you need to take a few days off of research and connect yourself to the nature, and that's very helpful.
That's really good. Yeah, you should, if you've never done it, you should drive up to Teton National Park with some of the geologists from the School of Energy Resources, and they will tell you about every peak and why it's jagged. And you are right, it's because it's young. So you can hear about all the geology in Wyoming on a 6-hour drive. So thank you so much for all you do for the department, for your students, for the university, and for us here at the School of Energy Resources. And thanks for doing the podcast.
Thank you very much. I appreciate School of Energy Resources support for all the ideas, or as you said, brainchild that wouldn't be existing without a direct support from SCR. And also the Department of Energy and Petroleum Engineering has been very supportive of these initiatives. And we are hoping to work together and build this center stronger in the future.
Let's do it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Energy Frontier, the Wyoming Landscape, the podcast that highlights the School of Energy Resources at the University of Wyoming. You can expect a new episode of Energy Frontier every Wednesday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. See you next time.